Hello, I'm Jonathan Pierce with Pierce Performance, and we're back for this week's performance tip. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about how to regain hip internal rotation. We saw last week how you can kind of at home self-assess or have a friend or family member, partner, etc. assess where your dysfunctions in hip mobility lie. And so today we're going to tackle one piece of that, and then in continuing weeks we'll follow up with ways to build back other range of motion restrictions. So this week we're dealing with internal rotation. It's important to understand why we're doing that. Oftentimes we'll have people with knee pain that actually lack internal rotation of their hip, and if they lack it in their hip, they sometimes chase it further down the femur into the knee, and so their knee collapses into what's called a valgus position. So knee pain would be an indicator. You might want to look at this one at least. Other reasons is I see it a lot of my athletes and CrossFit athletes and weightlifting athletes. They tend to lose internal rotation because of all the heavy squatting and barbell work that they do. So anybody that does a lot of that is susceptible here and stands to gain on a performance standpoint from doing some of these exercises, especially if it shows to be restricted as we did last week. And then finally, people with low back pain. As we age, we often lose some of the curve in our spine, and it's my experience that when people lose that curve and start to get compressed in their low back, they also lose internal hip rotation. So let's use that as three keys that you could look for to help yourself, and we will go to the exercises. Thanks very much for watching. The three exercises we're going to tackle to help hip internal rotation are a stretch and a pump for the obturator internus. So it's pumping your hip open and creating stretch on the obturator internus, a muscle deep in your pelvis. The next one is a banded hip distraction with, again, a pump on the capsule of the hip. And the final is an erect bend, so a lateral flexion exercise for your spine. Okay. For the obturator internus release and stretch, we're going to use simply just a weight bench. This is all you really need, or anything about this height. A couch or a bed at home, if it's firm, will work. Basically, we're gonna work on my right side. So with this, I'm going to get my foot on the table. I'm lying my leg just flat on the bench, and then I'm basically going to take my hand here, and I'm going to sit onto my left. Into my left hip. So it's almost like I'm squatting, except that this leg is up and sticking straight out to the side. Now I'm also going to lean away, so I'm leaning laterally into my left hip, and as I do this, I'm just kind of wrapping my hand around my hip, and I'm moving forward and back, and the more that I lean away and pull with this side, the more I get this deep stretch in my deep adductor, deep high adductor, and also the obturator internus underneath. You should feel like you're kind of ripping a little seam of tension, not ripping, but you're creating a strong seam of tension in the hip, deep. If you have knee pain with this, don't go as far, and that's a good indicator as to why your knee pain may be happening though. So you can play with the angle. You can come forward a bit, you can go back a bit, and all the while moving your hand in and out to create different lines of tension. So this will be an erect bend. It's a lateral flexion drill for the lumbar spine. We're doing this because when we create space and the ability to open here, it actually allows the hip to push and extend. So we'll actually build better hip function by getting mobility in your trunk. All right, I'll demonstrate it. All you need is a barbell. Depending on your strength and flexibility, you can use more or less weight. So we're going to be here, arms wrapped over the bar, and then I'm going to push into my left foot with my glute and stretch away from that side. And then bring it back, crunching on the left, pushing into the right glute, and alternate. Pushing into the right glute. Good. This is a band distraction for your hip, and we're going to try to create pumping on the front of the hip and also push the knee back into the back capsule of the hip so that we create more mobility. I'm going to first demonstrate this with the band pulling straight behind. You're going to use a green thick, heavy band like you'd see at the gym, or you can buy online, and you're gonna put it high up around your hip, and then I'm basically gonna set my foot solidly in the ground with a lot of tension in the band, and then I'm rotating my hip and pushing back into it. And then I can get a lot of traction with the band, so the band is pumping on the hip while I kind of shift and lean. I kind of lean forward with my torso to create that pressure. Then we can pivot a little bit so that we're pulling, but the whole time I'm trying to push my hip back, and the band pulls it back, and create that space in the front of the hip and allow the posterior of the hip to stretch. Thanks for watching this week, guys. Just to recap, we've addressed internal rotation of the hip, trying to improve that range of motion for your hip. And we've done it through doing a stretch for the obturator or internus, and then a lumbar lateral flexion exercise, also called an erect bend, which strengthens and stretches the obliques. And then we've also tackled it with a posterior hip glide with a band. So basically a band distraction for your hip, trying to create stretch in the hip joint. So this kind of is a simple program. There's a lot more options for us out there, but it's a simple way to address some of these deficiencies in internal rotation, and it kind of offers a nice snapshot of how you'd go about addressing the problem. Not just thinking about the hip itself or one muscle, but kind of addressing the whole system together. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week where we tackle hip extension and go on from there. Thanks so much.